right. I would like to call the Kitsap Public Facilities meeting of the Board of Directors to order then here on Monday, December 13th at 5:30 p.m. We're going to begin with a question, but even before that question, we want to welcome Russ Shiplet, our new Executive Director, to the post. Russ, it's good to see your face on the Zoom call, and just want to say again how excited we are to have you serving as the Executive Director for the KPFD. So welcome to you.
Well, thank you much. It's an honor for me to be here, and I really do appreciate the opportunity to serve this board and to serve in this position.
All right, so question of the night is a pretty simple one. It's a pretty quick one. In fact, 3 of these board members have been through it before, but Russ, we haven't heard your answer, and I don't think John, welcome, we have heard your answer. What was your favorite food at the Thanksgiving table that you got to feast on this year? That is the question of the night.
Got it. Mine's cranberries. It's always the cranberries.
Why cranberries?
Well, because if you mix it with the turkey and the potatoes and the gravy, it's the best.
All right. All right.
I'd have to say it's got to be gravy. I mean, gravy just goes over everything. In my world, that's a food group. There was discussion at work around some of the food groups. I can't get into all of them because it'll probably be self-incriminating, but gravy is one of them.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Mine would be my mother always made what she called Italian rice, and it was rice with chopped up onions that had been sautéed, mixed in with the rice, and a whole bucket load of cheese got melted over the whole thing. And so she made it, and she taught my late wife to make it. She made it for years and years, and now I make it. So
excellent.
I got to go with my husband's sweet potato pie.
There you go.
Sweet potato pie. I think I probably once in my life have had sweet potato pie, but it's definitely something I have heard more about than I have ever had at our table for Thanksgiving. So
it's way better than pumpkin.
Wow. All right. I'll need an invitation or a recipe or something.
Or pie. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'll hook you up. Yeah.
All right. Pat?
Yeah, I'll have to go with John with the gravy. I like gravy on everything: mashed potatoes, stuffing, turkey. The gravy is what makes it for me.
All right. Thank you, Pat. And Brian?
So many choices, but at the risk of elevating myself, I smoked a turkey breast in addition to my wife roasting a turkey, and it was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal.
All right. Smoked turkey breast. Mine would be my mother-in-law's stuffing. And there was a really sad day on like the Saturday before Thanksgiving when my wife told me they had not been feeling well and that they weren't going to be making the food like usual. And I was crushed because I was not going to have my mother-in-law's stuffing, which is basically the one food I look forward to the most, you know. And so I did call her like on Monday or something and just inquire, you know, very cautiously, are you not making the stuffing? Could you give me the recipe? I'll try and make it. And she assured me that she was making the stuffing still. She wasn't making anything else, but she knew she couldn't not make stuffing for me. So mine is definitely my mother-in-law's stuffing, and it's excellent. All right. So there you have it. Approval of minutes. Has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes, and can I have a motion for the approval of the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes as presented.
Thank you, Aaron. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Walt. Okay, any discussion on the minutes? All right, hearing none. Those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, minutes have been approved. We now have time for public comment. For those of you who are watching or listening in tonight, we like to give you the opportunity to speak to the board on any topic that you wish. We do ask or we do enforce that you keep it to 3 minutes. So if you are interested in making public comment, if you would put that in the chat function, or if you would raise your hand, and Russ will move you into our group of panelists so that you can speak.
I'm not seeing any raised hands. Nobody has chimed in on the chat yet that wishes to speak. Just 1 second here.
All right, and I'm looking at the chat function. It looks like Hake Anderson.
Right.
Maybe we can go back and forth, Russ, between showing the packet and then showing the panelists. But at this time, not seeing any hands up for public comment or any notes, we're going to move on to agenda item number 4 and welcome in Eric Baker to make the presentation on Heritage Park.
All right, let me let Eric in as a panelist. As soon as he gets on, I'll let him share the screen. Okay, Eric, are you on now?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much.
You bet. Okay, let me share my screen so you can do that.
Excellent. I will get it.
Okay.
Up.
There you go. You should have it now, Eric.
All right. Thank you. All right. Give me a second here. From the beginning. Okay. This you now see a full screen?
We can see a full screen. That's great.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. For the record, my name is Eric Baker. I'm with the Kitsap County Commissioner's Office. I want to thank the Public Facilities District Board for letting me go a little bit early on the agenda, as I have to run off to my board to present 3 different topics. So I will get this show on the road. The Port Gamble project is one of the projects that have been approved by the Public Facilities District. We greatly appreciate that funding, as we've been able to leverage that against a series of other funding sources and are making great progress. I won't go through in detail what I usually do with each one of these. I just want to remind everybody that the Port Gamble project is the most near term of the projects that are currently, I think, being considered by the Public Facilities District. That being that we'll be doing design and construction here this year and next. So in theory, phase 1 of our overall project should be complete. And that largely includes a mountain biking ride park, the Sound to Olympics Trail Northern Segment Trail Design, the Stoddlemeier Trailhead, and the Port Gamble Forest Heritage Park Master Plan. And I'll cover a status on each one of these, and I'll pause at the end of each one of these segments. So if there's any questions, you can ask them then rather than wait till the end. So if everybody remembers the ride park is a mountain biking facility with a wide variety of trail skill sets. The first phase of that, which is being conducted by the Evergreen Mountain Biking Association, utilizing a big chunk of their own money, is what you see here on the map to your right. This is the entirety of the ride park's trail system. Most of these trails are being constructed. They weren't pre-existing. I will kind of go over some of them. Can everybody see my cursor dancing?
Yeah.
All right. So basically, this entire system connects up to the Sound to Olympics Trail, which I'll cover here in a moment. and also an access road coming in from the north, which I'll also cover in a little bit. But basically, as we've always indicated, a ride park is one that has trails that are of a wide variety of skills, appropriate for a wide variety of ages. So an entire family can come to the park, and each of the family member has something that they can do. This will also include what's called a skills zone. That's one that isn't necessarily a series of trails. It is a more of a flattened area where various training-related elements are installed. It isn't as forested, it's more open, so parents can see their kids while they're practicing their skills before they get out on the trails. So what you see here, it's surrounded in yellow. And come on, where'd my cursor go? There it is. It's surrounded in yellow are trails that should be constructed here shortly. And then everything in orange are ones that should be completed here in summer of 22. So the idea being is that the entirety of the trail system will be constructed in 2022, which actually I should probably move ahead. This project, again, is in close connection with the Evergreen Mountain Biking Alliance's Western chapter. They are, again, providing in-kind services and also are our contractor for some of the Public Facilities District's funded improvements. So again, the yellow area will be complete here very shortly, while the area in orange is intended to be completed in summer and early fall of 2022 for the completed trail system. The second phase, I'm going to go back a slide. If you move along this kind of eastern boundary, this is where the Sound to Olympics Trail is coming in. It's also where our access road is coming in. And up here at the northern portion is where we are putting our parking facilities. Anybody who's been to the Port Gamble Park knows that access is limited, and if you want to get to certain remote portions of the park, like where this ride park is located, it can be a substantial hike. We are working on that northern access point, and we are putting the parking at that northern part of the ride park to ensure that we don't have vehicle traffic moving too far down into the park. So what you see here is 75 vehicle parking, 75 vehicle stalls. There will be vault bathrooms. So there will have bathroom facilities as well as areas for the people utilizing the park to park. It is currently in design, and it is scheduled for completion in fall of 2022. We are, as with everybody, experiencing some permitting difficulties as everybody's trying to get permits through the Department of Community Development. Also, we have a series of challenges with contractors, et cetera, just like everybody else is, because everybody wants to build, everybody has a workforce shortage, but we are moving forward and are on schedule. I'm going to stop there with the ride park. That is kind of the first element that the Public Facilities District has funded both design and construction of. Kitsap County has a substantial amount of money in it as well as a lot of in-kind services.
Eric, the question I'd ask just off of that is that slide right before this. You've got the scale of 500 feet, I believe that says, or maybe it's 800 feet.
800 feet.
But from top to bottom, how long of a distance is that? Miles?
Well, I'm going to say that probably all the way you're looking at about a half mile, maybe. Let's see, okay. 800, 32, 36. Yeah, I'd say about a half mile from in north-south, and then substantially shorter east-west.
Okay, thank you.
If you're looking at this map, the green is the least challenging, and as you note, is kind of intended to be a connector roadway around the breadth of the project. And then some of these, like the blue and the red, are the most difficult, and people don't have to get on them. People who don't feel comfortable being on them, but people have the ability to go do them and then get back on to a more gradual trail to move on to the next opportunity. All right.
Are 75 parking stalls going to be enough for you, Eric?
75 is where we're starting as we kind of move a little further into the master plan, and I'm going to talk about some other parking related elements that we are planning. especially if we're going to be expanding the use of this park. But at this point, 75 stalls is what is what we expect for the introductory use of the park. Of course, all parks, you don't really want to over design parking because it ends up being a whole bunch of paved or graveled surface in the middle of the trees, but you don't want there to be too few. 75 is where we hope to be the sweet spot, but if we are super successful, we're going to say, boy, I really wish we had 150 stalls, and that would be one of our next projects.
Yeah.
As I was mentioning, there is an access road that we have just recently negotiated with Rainier, previously Pope Resources, that comes in from the town site. They will be constructing this very likely in 2022, which will then connect us pretty much to State Highway 104 all the way up the hill to the park. So we will have direct connection pretty much right off of 104, very, very close to the town site itself into this ride park, which will be a great amenity which will allow economic development of the town site to fuel the ride park and vice versa. Anybody who's familiar with this area, this up here is where the wastewater, the membrane biofiltration reactor, their wastewater system is for the town, and this is their drain field area for that.
Eric, where are the soccer fields and like the tent that's out there and downtown where the businesses are with restaurants on the map? Okay.
Well, so this is Highway 104 coming up and around the horn.
I see.
And then this is the town site. If you cross over, up here is what's called Babcock Farm. Basically, if you look up on the hill every once in a while, you might see longhorn cows. Pope has an idea of kind of an agritourism area located along this roadway as it goes up to the park.
Okay.
Other ride park related questions?
When we had one from Shannon Thompson, he's our construction consultant, and he asked if the county's looking at permeable pavement for the parking areas.
So actually, at this point, we're looking at gravel. If we were to pave it, we would be looking at permeable. But at this point, the current design is intended to be a compacted surface such as gravel. We're trying to balance the rural aesthetic with overall maintenance. All right, so moving on, we're going to go to the Sound to Olympics Trail, which is the second component. If everybody remembers, the Sound to Olympics Trail is a trail system that connects up. If you look at the purple line, you're looking at connecting Bainbridge Island to the Hood Canal Bridge. The one that is most focused on Kitsap County is the blue and purple that connect you from Kingston to Port Gamble, and that's where most of our focus has been. The funding that was provided by the Public Facilities District is this red starting here at the edge of our property line, and will design and permit the trail system through some relatively challenging topography, coming up and around and then connecting up to the ride park, which is this area right in through here. When I showed you the trails and all that, that's located right through here. The parking area is located right in through here, and then the access roads coming in through there. This additional part of red is something that we would be looking to construct in partnership with Rainier. But at this point, we are looking to design as much as we can all the way to the town site so that it provides clear connection from the town site to the ride park. This is, some people also call it segments A, B, and D. This is A, this is B, and this is D. It is a relatively short length of what's going to be a shared use trail, 12 feet wide, paved. Again, this is intended to be for all families, not necessarily built to ADA in all circumstances, but we're doing our very best. The plan for this is completion of the design by 2022. We've already secured some construction funding for construction in 2023 and 2024. But costs are escalating substantially. So it might be the type of thing that in a future time, we may be coming back to the Public Facilities District to see if you have interest in helping fund the construction of this trail. As again, this would provide a non-motorized connection between Port Gamble and the ride park in a manner that doesn't require going on State Highway 104. This here is segment C. It is substantially longer, but it is also flatter and does not have the topographical challenges. Thus, design, permitting, and construction is substantially cheaper, but that is in off years. But again, we are in design. We have contractors working as we speak on the completion of this non-motorized corridor. Any questions on this Sound Olympics Trail? All right, the next is the Stoddlemeier Trailhead. I think we spent a lot of time talking about the northern portion, but I think we all who have experienced the Port Gamble Park know that there is a little bump out on the right-of-way located right down here where most people park to get into the southern part of the park. Some of the funding from the Public Facilities District is going to the establishment of a southern trailhead. It connects to the Sound to Olympics Trail. And also, it will be in addition to roadside parking. We have preliminary design put together. Basically, what you're going to see here is 25 additional car stalls. But then also one thing that is greatly needed is equestrian parking stalls. And when you're looking through here, these are 5 equestrian parking stalls that require a entirely different design spectrum for the parking lot. They take up a substantial amount of space, but if you've ever been down to the southern bump out ad hoc parking area, you know that one horse trailer can take up about 7 or 8 stalls. So again, having a dedicated place for them is definitely the most economical way to move forward. We're also establishing and developing a future area for a bathroom. That's not currently in this program, but would be something that we would be looking to move forward with in the future, probably a vault toilet similar to the one that is planned for construction at the ride park parking area. We also have negotiated the acquisition of all the trees that we need to clear so we don't have to buy them. Just as a reminder, Kitsap County owns most of this land, but the trees are still owned by Pope or Rainier, so they can come and cut them. So we need to find a way to acquire them, and they have transferred the ownership of those trees at a pretty substantial value to us to hopefully save save in the cost of construction. Questions on the Stoddlemeier Trailhead? All right, let's move on to one of the exciting components, which is, okay, we have a 3,500 acre park. We've talked about the Sound to Olympics Trail. We've talked about the ride park. We've talked about the Stoddlemeier Trailhead, which are the anchors for the park. But what else can this park be over time? One of the funding that the Public Facilities District has provided is to develop a master plan for the entirety of the 3,500 acres. This master plan is supposed to look at recreation opportunities, trail opportunities, as well as conservation opportunities, and then lastly, economic development opportunities. So we've been going through a robust public outreach process. I think a number of you have attended a few of these. We've received hundreds of comments and suggestions as to what to do with this park, ranging from don't touch it at all to soccer fields. Obviously, neither of those are really kind of the sweet spot in the middle, but it really does kind of help the public get in and provide their feedback. We've had 3 sets of public meetings so far, the first of which is kind of the standard introduction to the master plan, how it's going to work. We then basically said, okay, what would you guys like to see in this park? And we had open solicitation both through these meetings and online for several months. And then from there, we took those ideas and developed them into alternatives, which I'll go into more at length here in a moment. And then we presented those 3 alternatives ranging from least impactful to most impactful to the public and solicited comment on that. We've also had very, very close collaboration with our local tribes, both Port Gamble, Sklallam, and the Suquamish. We want to ensure that the cultural heritage of the tribes are clearly indicated in this park as we move forward. And any way that we can have synergy with some of their operations when it comes to culturally significant plant species or other things that show their heritage, we want to make sure we include. This is going to be a careful balance between conservation and recreation. There's a lot of folks who want a mountain bike and soccer field. Other folks just want to go out and bird watch. It is 3,500 acres, so there is land available to do many of these things, but we want to make sure that we are sensitive to both of those. We have 3 draft alternatives, which I'll share with you in a moment, as it applies to the recreation, education, and other expanded uses. But a lot of those all kind of focus around an educational spin. So we have a lot of recreational opportunities, but when it comes to some of the other uses that you see proposed, we really are trying to focus on kind of having an education, either with timber resources or wildlife habitat. We really kind of want that to be the theme for this park, as again, it is a beautiful conserved area in many ways. So kind of going through the alternatives, I'm going to go through the 3. Basically, when you look at the 3,500 acres of the park and the maps I'm going to show you, I want to make sure that you know that the maps I'm going to show you is a blow up of pretty much just this little area adjacent to the ride park. If you remember, here's where the ride park was located. Here's where the Sound to Olympics Trail is coming down. The parking area that is being developed is right there. A lot of our proposals are being included in this area. It's already been logged, so we don't have to cut any trees, and has topography that is good for a number of different options. The alternatives you're going to see range from only about 10 to 50 acres of the full 3,500 acres. So just want to make sure you know we are talking about a small footprint of the overall land. And these, again, have close connection to all of the existing anchor projects I talked about previously. So alternative A, this is the least of the projects. What you see here is you kind of have a small, there we go, small event and kind of education center. You have another parking area, which I think you properly indicated was something that we're going to need. We have a kind of a nature-based playground that's located next to the northern parking lot. Then also there's kind of an outdoor classroom area, and then an environmental cultural center. These are, again, kind of planning level blobs, but as you're coming on off the Sound to Olympics Trail and an access road that would be running parallel, but they wouldn't be sharing the space, would be coming to access this area. There's also a very small amount of event space located in this, and then also a viewing platform, which if you get to this point, you'll note there are gorgeous views in multiple directions that we want to construct. So again, this is kind of the lowest of the alternatives. Let's see, I think I covered everything there. Second alternative starts to expand this a little further. The event staging area is larger. The environmental cultural center is larger, and now we start to introduce what could be various camping opportunities. And whether that's probably more in the area of glamping. By glamping, I mean either these are going to be yurts that are available for rent, or maybe just tent platforms, so people can stay off the ground. But the idea is the synergy between some of these, the synergy between the educational opportunities, the opportunities for the ride park, which is already there, as well as having events. Camping could be a key element to that. It also expands the outdoor classroom and also adds a picnic area up by the parking area for the ride park. So again, you've got a nature-based playground area, as well as the outdoor picnic area, and then of course the parking lot. So as you note here, the area starts to expand. And then lastly, pretty much it includes all the uses from the past 2 alternatives. It has the largest footprint. The camping area is substantially expanded. The event space, classroom space, as well as the introduction of a research facility. Again, kind of leaning into the education opportunity. There may be some very clear connections between Western Washington Olympic College in, again, timber management, wildlife protection, habitat protection, all that. It could be a very attractive location for that. You also have, again, a greater event staging area. So now you can have much larger groups of individuals, whether that be road races or not road races, mountain biking races, whether that be marathons, half marathons. But one of the things that this does also include outside of the research facility is something that was proposed by a number of folks, which is a Frisbee golf course. It is something that had a lot of interest in people seeing an alternative, though it does not quite fit with the others. Really kind of playing the what doesn't quite fit. That one is a little different from some of the others that we have proposed. I'm going to pause there for a moment, and I will go back to any of the alternatives you would like to see. But again, the most area, which would be shown by this one, is roughly taking up 50 acres. A big chunk of that has already been logged, so we don't have to cut down any additional trees, which will save in construction costs, but also maintain the natural beauty of the area.
So is there a consideration? You have these labeled as alternatives A, B, and C. Is there a consideration for some of these alternatives to be a phased plan? Like, for instance, alternate C, you don't build all of it at one point in time, but as funding allows, you phase it in.
I believe that this is going to be a phased construction. Largely what we're looking at is we're looking at a preferred alternative that's going to kind of show full build out, with the idea that a lot of these types of uses are going to need partnerships, either with educational institutions or recreation nonprofits, or other things like a Frisbee golf course, where obviously we're going to need to have some kind of interlocal agreement with some kind of organization like we do with EMBA, who's going to be maintaining the mountain biking ride park. So I think what we're looking at in this master plan isn't to necessarily establish the phasing. Again, education is probably the core, so we'd like to see it come in first, and then it would fuel the other uses. But again, what we are looking at is pretty much showing full build out. And then as we start to get traction with some of these, we may darken various funders' doors, such as the Public Facilities District, to see if they see economic benefit in any of these. I believe also in all these alternatives, there's also a concept for a small, what's called an adventure park, basically one of those ropes courses through the trees type scenario.
And I guess one of the reasons I was asking about the permeable pavement is that, a gravel surface is now considered the same as asphalt, right? There, as far as stormwater quality goes, where permeable pavement, I mean, no, it's a lot more expensive. It does have its water treatment capabilities to help maintain a lot of these streams that are in this area. So,
yeah, no, we definitely agree. It is that cost component. And permeable pavement is one of the other things that has gone up pretty substantially in price recently. The unfortunate part about being the one project that's building stuff right now is we're also having to live with what it costs to build stuff right now.
Right.
Obviously, the supply chains get a whole heck of a lot better. Workforce gets a whole heck of a lot better. But we're pretty much standing right in the teeth of all of these problems while trying to deliver the project that we promised.
Do you have a cultural resources report for the area?
We've worked with both the Port Gamble, Sklallam, and Suquamish tribes. We have a lot of their information located through here. We are substantially uphill from them. A lot of their main cultural activities were along the waterfront, but we will have some cultural resource analysis located in the master plan.
Eric, I'm excited to see the disc golf component to it. During the pandemic, a number of my friends who I usually play basketball with have picked up disc golf, and so we go disc golfing now. And Bud Pell is an area that is going to have some construction on it and is going away, and that's one of the most used disc golf courses. And so I'm excited to see that. My son also loves it, and he and his friends, who are all in that young 20s range, love going out and doing disc golf. So I'm excited to see this.
Good. We'll see how it plays out through into the preferred alternative. But yeah, there's a lot of folks that are interested in that. And disc golf is not as environmentally detrimental as regular golf. in regards to the fact that oftentimes it's just done through the trees and it's existing cleared areas.
What is the decision-making process between the alternates?
Currently, we're working our way through the various consultant teams, the Parks Department, because obviously all this is going to have to be maintained. And then we're going to be presenting that to the public. The public will then basically say, well, we like that you included that. We hate that you included that. Or we want you to add some stuff back in. From there, the preferred alternative is going to go to the board, and the public is going to likely have a Chinese menu experience, indicating I like this, not that. And we kind of work our way through it for, again, adoption by the board coming up this spring. Which actually was the next slide. Yeah, it's based on public comment. There'll be a preferred alternative. It's going to be somewhere between B and C, very likely. Again, between 25 and 50 acres max. That preferred alternative will be available for public review sometime in January. So stay tuned. And then the board consideration in March, probably adoption somewhere in April, depending on the amount of public information we get. This is going to lead to a number of exciting opportunities that I'll be knocking on your door for, saying, hey, wouldn't it be cool if? And from hopefully this master plan, you guys can help see the vision, see how it helps the county economically and fits the mission of the Public Facilities District. Just to kind of run over a couple of the other elements of the master plan, we are also kind of looking at the rest of the 3,500 acres and doing various trail routes, focusing on loops. This will involve using existing trails, existing logging roads where we can. There'll be some expansions. Some trails might actually be going away because these do have to be maintained. Some are safer than others. And again, we are trying to focus on loops so people can go out, pretty much say, I feel like going this far today, and then they can work their way back without having to just pretty much walk down and turn around and walk back. That's not nearly as exciting. And then conservation. This is an area that we do want to maintain the habitat integrity. This will have a restoration focus and probably some efforts made to look at acquiring the trees that we haven't already. So we'll be kind of proceeding along with that. If you're looking at where our development area is, it's roughly right about there. So again, staying out of the conservation areas, away from the wetlands, away from the streams. So we've leveraged a lot of funding. We have the STO, we've got additional construction funding. We're probably going to need some assistance with that. We have the access road being provided by OPG. We have in-kind labor from both EMBA and private contractors. That has helped us defray some of our escalating construction costs. Will it help us with all the escalating construction costs? I doubt it. Again, I may be returning to you at some point with a clear picture on why and how that happened. The trees on the Stoddlemeier Trailhead, again, a multi-$1,000 opportunity. 3 new parking areas off of State Highway 104. So this is actually off the park. We've negotiated with Rainier additional open space up by the town site and 2 parking areas, going back to your concern about where's everybody going to park. That won't be on the park, but will be county owned and county developed at some time in the future. That land has been negotiated and transferred and will be transferred to the county over the next year and a half from Rainier. And then lastly, we've also negotiated land for the entirety of the trail connection all the way to Kingston. So we don't have to worry about buying that land, buying those trees. We have negotiated all of that, all the open space, additional parking areas, and really leveraged a lot of in-kind labor from some very interested local residents. But what are the considerations? I've already kind of hinted at some of this. Our cost estimates were based on 2019 assumptions. Due to COVID delays, workforce and supply shortages, everything's going up. Some things have gone up 30 to 35%. Construction, this is a rough time to be constructing things. Kitsap and its partners have leveraged in-kind services and cost savings where possible. So again, we're trying to plug all the holes we can, but probably we don't have 25 10% of fluff that we can lean manage our way around. Budget may become an issue as we get closer to completion, and we may return to all of our funders, including our own local parks budget, as well as the PFD, if we aren't able to adequately plug all the holes.
Eric, you've mentioned IMBA a couple of times. I don't know what IMBA is or who they are.
Evergreen Mountain Biking Association, the Western chapter. So I'm sorry. I usually try to avoid the acronyms all, but yes,
Okay.
Evergreen Mountain Biking Association.
Thank you.
I greatly want to thank you for your time tonight. If anybody has any questions or needs any additional follow-up, please let me know early and often. I'm available at that email at all odd hours of the day and night. Also, for more information regarding the master plan and the master plan process, please visit portgambleforestpark.com.
Eric, thank you so much for your presentation. Very exciting. Good to see things being completed, but good to see a picture of the future as well that's coming together. So thank you for all your good work.
Thank you, and have a great evening.
Thank you, Eric.
Bye, everybody.
Eric.
All right, we'll now move into item number 5 on our agenda, new business and the consent agenda consideration. Russ, could you scroll to that page that kind of explains what a consent agenda is?
Certainly.
So in your packets, and just for the public as well, what is a consent agenda? And in broad terms, what a consent agenda would allow us to do is basically save time on different items that we traditionally go through in a meeting. And I will say, approval of the minutes. Can I have a motion for the approval of the minutes? And Aaron says yes. And then we have a pause for the second person to come through, and we wait for who's going to second it. And then is there any discussion? And then we vote on it. And so what it would do is it would take items like that, as well as our blanket voucher for the KPFD, or for our project vouchers, where this is all information that we would have ahead of time. It wouldn't be information that's being presented that night. And we can pick and choose what would be in that consent agenda, on a regular basis. We could have that discussion tonight as a board of like, what items do we think would be good within a consent agenda? And basically what it does is it puts it all together, and we do it all at once so that we don't spend time doing each one. Now, if something was on the consent agenda, but Pat wanted to have a conversation about it, wanted to have discussion about it, all he does is say, I'd like to remove the project voucher for Paulsbo Perk off of consent agenda, and it automatically happens. So if any board member at all wants to ever have discussion on anything that they think is important, it immediately comes off, and we do it the traditional way, or the way that we have been doing it, where we have that motion, we have the second, we have discussion on the item, and then we take a vote. And so the advantage to doing a consent agenda is it gives us more efficiency as a board, and it takes care of some of the monotony pieces. The negative side to it, if I would, is that maybe you lose some of the discussion or the ability for the public to see everything. But really, if any board member at all wants to say, hey, let's pull that off the consent agenda, we can do that at the start of the meeting, of each meeting. So I guess I'll go to Brian and Russ together and say, did I do an adequate job of explaining that in broad strokes? And do you want to add anything in? and then for board members to ask any questions or give your opinions on whether you think that's something that is good for us as a board to adopt and to use, or if it's something, let's not do that. So Brian and Russ, anything that you would add?
Go ahead, Brian.
So the idea of a consent agenda is extremely widespread in the state of Washington with boards and councils and so on. And it exists for the reason Darren indicated. Generally, you can batch together items that are routine ministerial and don't involve any real discussion. So that would include your minutes, unless of course somebody has an amendment. It would include routine reports, for us, like the ED activity report or the regional facility reports that normally are tacked on the end of our agenda and don't really receive much discussion. As Darren said, the premise of the consent agenda is that board members have their packets ahead of time and have which is important, essential, and then have the opportunity to read all of those items and decide, oh, okay, this is routine, but I would like some discussion on item A, B, or C. And as Darren said, then the practice is at the onset of the meeting or even ahead of the meeting, somebody says, can we pull item A or B or C from the consent agenda because I'd like to ask some questions or have some discussion. So, Darren, yes, you described things accurately, and I think my main comment is this is very widespread in the state of Washington with legislative bodies as a good practice.
Sort of underscoring what Brian said, I'm on 2 other boards, and we utilize consent agenda on both of those other 2.
I have a question about it. So does the public see the consent agenda prior to the meeting? Does it go out in the minutes or?
The consent agenda should go out with.
Does that make sense?
It should be part of the agenda.
So it's typical.
So if someone in the public had a problem, if someone had a problem with it and wanted us to discuss it, they could go into the 3 minutes they get at the beginning of the meeting and say, I have a problem with this. Someone could decide to do it. So just saying, does the public get to see it prior to the meeting?
Yes, generally, yes. You have your agenda go out and you have your agenda packet. That's how the board would know to read these reports ahead of time. So generally, the items that are on the consent agenda are part of the packet that's available to the public ahead of time.
And I also think too, Pat, to help answer that question, we put the agenda on our website so the public can see what's going to be spoken to. So if we have consent agenda as part of that, those pieces that would be in the consent agenda would be listed there. What I do not do is I do not take the entire packet of material that we're going over tonight and putting that as a link where they could download it. But they can see ahead of time what's going to be spoken with the consent agenda.
Okay.
And if I was following that train of thought, Pat, did you ask if the member of a public could pull that out? Because that is, they can't pull something out of consent.
No. If somebody in the public, they got up in their 3 minutes and said, you know what, I think you guys should talk about the Port Orchard thing. And then it would be up to one of us to pull it out, I would assume.
Correct.
If we felt inclined to do so.
And they can always ask that in the chat during the public comment. Hey, I looked online. I saw that you're going to cover this in consent agenda. I'd like for you to consider pulling that out of consent agenda. And then the board can do whatever it is they want to do. What I wanted to be clear about and make sure that I understood Brian correctly. So we've had this discussion is that since we have to fall up underneath the Public Records Act, we have to make sure that anything that we do talk about is for public consumption or later on can be provided to the public. So we don't want to appear as if we're not fully transparent about what we're talking about in upcoming meetings.
Mhm.
So we would just set the list of the items that we think we'll be using in consent agenda before the next meeting or whatever, right?
Right. The idea is that I would talk with Darren. Darren and I and Brian would look and go, okay, these are items that would fall up underneath the consent agenda. And then when we get the packet out to the board, then you'd be able to see what's going to be listed in that consent agenda, as well as it'd be listed online as well. But I'm not going to just arbitrarily go, oh, I think that's a consent agenda. I'll make sure that Brian weighs in on that and says, yep, it's good. And obviously Darren weighs in on it too.
For all of you though, give us feedback right now. The ones that I think would be included on a regular basis would be the approval of minutes, the ED and regional facility reports, and then the blanket voucher and project vouchers, to lump all of those together. So when we have 4 different project vouchers tonight, that would all happen with a consent agenda instead of going through the 5 of them. And then, just as Pat said, if someone said, hey, let's pull out the Port Gamble one, okay, off the consent agenda, we'll have discussion on that for whatever reason that person had concern about.
I like that. I would just caution Russ to each blanket voucher should be its own line item in consent agenda, so we don't have to pull them all out if somebody just wanted to talk about one.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. I agree, John, that when we show, if we have it as a consent agenda, that it's the vouchers, each one of those vouchers would be listed separately as a review. Yeah. So it could be a subset of one of the consent items. Yeah.
Okay, would anybody have any concerns of let's not move down this road?
What do you need from us? Do we need a motion to make that happen, or we can just start?
I think we can just start. I don't think we need a motion to say that, but we'll start with the next meeting.
It sounds good to me.
Yeah, it's not to keep us from talking about a particular item. It's to keep us from being forced to talk about every item. Yeah,
it definitely will speed the meeting along too.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for your input on that. And let's move on to 5B, review the KPFD office technology needs quote. And Russ is going to speak to us on this. And I would just ask for all of you who are panelists, all board members and everybody who's a panelist here, Brian and Shannon, let's all mute our selves while he's talking, because I'm getting feedback at least on my ears. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Darren. I've got several slides to show you, but I'm going to just kind of do a high-level skim on them because we don't need to go too deep in the weeds. But if you have questions, obviously we can do that. This stems from when I first got here. I noticed that I had some concerns about things like I didn't know where our server was. I didn't know if we had a firewall system protecting all of our files. You know, obviously we have tons of paper files, but we're in an electronic world now. So, you know, being real concerned about that. Also the ability to be able to remote in. So let's say that I wasn't able to physically come to the office, but I needed to respond to something that a board member would ask, or the county may ask, or one of the city jurisdictions. I do not have the ability right now to be able to remote in and do that from any other location. So I contacted Help Desk Calvary. And the reason why I contacted Help Desk Calvary is I've worked with them in the past. When I was at the Kitsap Building Association, they came in and addressed our technology needs and have done a phenomenal job of that. What I did do after contacting Help Desk Calvary and getting kind of their bottom line, if you will, is I did reach out to other businesses that do the exact same thing and said, hey, I'm looking in the ballpark. Can you give me an estimate? And their prices came in significantly higher for the technology need, and then the follow-up service that happens on a monthly basis. So I do feel that what you're going to see, even though it's expensive to get us started, I do feel it is probably the best that we can do in Kitsap County. So all the onboarding for the infrastructure, they do what's called a wireless router or a dream machine. And what that dream machine would do was it would serve as a backup to what we have. It also has built into it a firewall system. What's really good about this is that it gives Help Desk Calvary the ability to be able to come into our system right now and be able to address any needs that we may have. Or they also monitor those on a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week basis and report back to me and say, it looks like some malware was tried to be installed, or it looks like somebody from the outside tried to break into the back door, if you will, of the server. And it protects that, and it gives us the ability to be able to make sure that we're secure. We do not have, the way our current system is that we have a one computer right here. It has a hard drive and then has a backup drive that's attached to it. That backup drive, it backs the system up every 30 minutes around the clock. That's all good, but if this computer were to all of a sudden die, or we had a power outage, or the backup died, we would be in a world of hurt, because we do not have a backup in the cloud, so to speak. We do not have a backup on OneDrive. We do not have a backup system anywhere else. This is it. So Help Desk with this dream machine would have those backups for us and be able to allow us to be able to recover if we lost any data. It comes with a remote workstation, which I'd be able to take with me. It would have a docking station. I could literally take that laptop with me then, and I could remote in from work from wherever I'm located, as long as I have a Wi-Fi capability to do that. The laptop that Mike had was, it's about 3 years old, and not that there's anything wrong with it, but it doesn't meet the configuration requirements, the hardware configurations requirements that is needed for the type of system that Help Desk wants to install for our system itself. It also comes with a backup UPS system. So if we lost power, we have a backup system that's a 10-hour system. So we have backup power for a longer period of time if we were to lose power. And then that docking station, like I talked about, would go with the laptop that would be connected to all of this itself. And then they talk about all of the fees that would be associated with doing that. This is all the migration that they would be doing, including Microsoft 365. The problem we have with Microsoft 365 right now is that Mike had purchased that on his own, and it was registered in his name. So the license is in his name. So therefore, I can't get anything transferred over to me. And I'm still having issues where I'm getting an email to Mike's alternate email address and executive director. Now, I've been able to find workarounds through all of this, but especially when it comes to Microsoft and the integration of all the different components from Outlook to everything else, everything still has Mike's name attached to it. Aaron, you had mentioned something about that today. And yeah, that's kind of some of the things that I kind of battle with on a daily basis with regard to people going, is this coming from Mike, or where is this coming from? It would clean all of that up for us. The other thing it would do too is for you all it would clean up your emails so you do not have to go to a third party like you do right now and go to check your PFD emails. It could be part of your normal email system. In other words, you wouldn't make it as part of your personal Gmail account, but you could add it into, say, your Outlook, if you use Outlook, Microsoft Outlook, and you would have just a separate box you could click that would be everything related to PFD. And it would be much easier. The other thing too is that we actually pay a third party to host those emails for us, and it costs us $80 a month to do that. And that would eliminate, we'd save on that. That would eliminate that cost as well. The other thing too is the domain. Our Kitsap PFD .org, that domain is owned by Exact Hosting, and we have to pay an annual fee every year to maintain that. All of that would be included because the domain migration would go over to Help Desk. So that subtotal is $54.50. If you add that along with all the computers or with all the infrastructure that's needed and the services, it's $87.26.73. Now, I also asked them, so what if we have you as our monitoring service to monitor those things and to a 24/7 place where I could give a call to and say, hey, I can't log in, what's going on? Or I can't find these files now. And can you bring us back to where we were a day ago when I was able to find those files? And also too, of course, for firewall protection and our server. And they came back and they said, yes, we can certainly offer that. As a matter of fact, if they bring in the infrastructure, they want to be the ones that to do that service. So all this just talks about all the different hardware support and after-hour support. And they would do that for $250. So you can see it's an employee IT services. It includes service management and user management, and then also the network location service. That also means that they would come on site. If I ever needed them, they would come on site and do that for us. And there is a tax that's associated with that. And that monthly tax would be, the monthly total would be $259. So what I'm proposing to the board would be the expenditure of $8,600, and let me get that figure exactly. And it's also part of a voucher, $8,626.73 to get us up to where we need to be equipment-wise, and then also to allow the monthly expenditure of $259 a month to have Help Desk Calvary service. Okay, so I'm sure that there are a lot of questions, so let me quit sharing here. And let me answer any questions that you all may have.
Yeah, comments, questions.
Russ, the $259 a month, was that accounted for in the budget? So we don't have to have a separate anything for that, or we're going to need to amend the budget?
Yeah, no, I actually put it into the budget, the $259 a month as part of as part of our IT solution. So that includes our phone and our internet, but I threw in there the $259 a month as part of the budget that we'd be looking to approve tonight.
Russ asked me too, should I prepare two budgets, one with it and one without? And I said, no, we know that we have technology issues that we need to improve. And why don't you prepare it with it? And we can always take it out if the board feels like it's not a good idea.
Yeah, and Walt, you may want to speak to it too, but I sent the final draft to Walt to make sure that Walt felt like the budget looked good and he was good with it as well.
So then we won't be $80 a month anymore, right? So it's actually not $259 because we save $80 a month.
I wasn't sure that all these costs that Russ just outlined, whether or not they're included in the proposed budget.
No, it would be a one-time. Yeah,
I don't think they are.
They're not. The only thing that's part of the budget would be $259 a month. And the reason why that is, Pat, is that it would be a one-time purchase for all the equipment and the service to make that happen. So I actually have that as part of the blanket voucher that you all would approve tonight. It's a line item. If you all say, no, we don't want to do that, then we just pull it out of the blanket voucher, and then that overall blanket voucher amount changes. But no, it is, we would pay that in one time. That'd be a one-time payment, and then $259 a month after that. And that's how it's budgeted. It's $259 a month.
You know, I think we're probably okay with the proposed budget. We may do some kind of budget revision halfway through the upcoming year and can, you know, catch up on these things. But we may have other things that have we've underspent and all. We just need to wait and see. I don't think we need to worry about that tonight.
Yeah, and I'd actually like to do a quarterly budget review.
I have two additional questions, Russ.
Okay.
With the signing on of Microsoft 365, would the board have access to that one? And the second one would be, if so, what might the ramifications be? And Brian might need to weigh in on work with OneDrive teams on things that are ongoing while they're not a quorum, right? If I'm going to look at something, that's where all our documents can live, but we can have working documents as they go. I don't know.
Yes, so you as a board member we would set up OneDrive, since OneDrive is part of Microsoft 365. So any documents that I would send would go to the OneDrive, and then you all would have access to be able to go in there. And of course, I'd create folders and subfolders as necessary, so you'd be able to do that. It doesn't so therefore, I don't necessarily have to send things to you in an email format, right? You can go to the OneDrive and I can just tell you, hey, I just put this together. It's in the OneDrive if you want to go take a look at it, and you all have access to it. As far as the 365, I do not believe everybody would have their own subscription to 365. I think it's a one user. It may be more than that. It may be multiple users. But what we're buying would be the 365 basic business plan. That's what they recommend. But yeah, all of you would have access to the OneDrive. And you could also upload to OneDrive as well.
Any other questions?
I just have one more. So this is under our limit without doing an RFP, correct? I don't remember what that limit was.
This is Brian. The limit is $150,000
Okay.
for competitive bidding requirement.
Okay.
Is the perfect time to make a motion?
Yeah, let's make a motion. Thank you, John.
Yeah, I'd like to make the motion to authorize Russ to move forward with Help Desk Calvary. As I understand it, should only need the $8,726.73.
And if you need it for this month as well, maybe the additional 259
Yes.
friendly amendment. And then a second.
I'll second
it.
Thank you. Hearing Walt on that one first. Any discussion? All right. I do want to say, Pat, I always appreciate your thoughtfulness with all kind of public records requirements, all kind of guidelines. Thank you for always bringing that question and that knowledge to our board. And with that, all those in favor, say aye.
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 And those opposed, say nay. Motion passes. All right, on to item number 5C, the KPFD credit card consideration, a discussion on that. Is that a discussion that we are going to have tonight, Russ?
Hang on just one second. Let me quit sharing my screen again. Oh, my screen's not shared. So John and I spoke briefly. We want to make sure that the county treasurer is okay with us doing something like this. I have a call into her and I wasn't able to reach her, so I'll reach to, I left her a voicemail, but I will reach to her again tomorrow. So I would say let's table this.
We'll table this for next meeting. On to 5D, review the project voucher approval process. Can you put that flow chart up,
I sure
Russ?
can.
So we've been getting project vouchers, and we're gonna keep getting a number more. And tonight we have 4 different ones on the docket, and so we wanted to give more formality and clarity, both to the process that we use with the project vouchers. And so we had a discussion with Shannon and with Russ and with John, who I think really brought this issue up a number of meetings ago, of like, what exactly is our process for how does this work? And so this gives you an idea of that. So we receive the invoice, it gets logged into Shannon's group as received, and then Shannon reviews it. And you can follow the flow chart. If it's a no, it's returned, and we ask for additional information, which is something that we have already started to do. As far as we have said, no, we need more information on this invoice, and that's a good move for us to make. Or yes, this is approved, and then it goes to Russ, back to Russ, and then to us as a board. And so before any voucher comes to us, Shannon is reviewing it to say, hey, is the work product that has been done, is that consistent with what we're being billed for? Is everything that we're being billed for detailed? So do we have an understanding of where the money is going? And does this fit with what our ILA is or our agreement with our partner is? And so that is, in essence, an overview. Shannon, anything that you would want to add to what I said to make that process more clear, or something that I misspoke on?
No, I think you hit it right on the head. As we've noticed that some of these invoices as are coming in, there are summaries of expenditures, but there's no details to the expenditures. And so that process, like right there, it says review for entirety. That's really what that process is. If it's not complete, we'll kick it right back out so they can, respond to those and provide the details that we need. But, it was a very good explanation. I don't have much more to add to that.
And
All right. Go ahead, Russ.
yeah, thank you, Darren. So Shannon and I met on Friday, and what I discovered is that some of those invoices had been approved prior to going to Shannon, and then passed on to the board for blanket approval. But I don't want to do that process anymore, because I'm not the subject matter expert on this. Shannon is. And so when an invoice comes in, it's going to immediately go to Shannon and Cindy. They're going to take a look at it. And then if they feel like it's good, we don't need any additional information, then they will say, Russ, it looks good to us. And then I will send it on the board for approval through a blanket voucher. But if they say there's not enough information for us to make a determination that we're actually paying for what we're actually getting our money's worth for what they're asking for, we have an idea of where they're currently at in the project, so we have some sense of a timeline, then we will not take it before the board for approval. And because of that discussion we had on Friday, we sat down and we looked at all 4 project vouchers. And in all cases, there was not enough information provided that Shannon felt comfortable with saying, no, I'm good with that expenditure. So we actually have taken the vouchers off tonight for approval of those 4 projects. And I'm going to be requesting of them far more information. And I'll be including the board in on that request. So you will see that when that goes. But it's going to be a conversation with each project head for each one of the projects, so they understand that, listen, we're spending taxpayer dollars, and it's extremely important that we know and we understand exactly what is being spent, what that expenditure spent. I mean, we hired Shannon for a reason, so I'm not the one that says, nope, that looks good, let's move forward with it.
And one of
Any questions or discussion?
just for clarity, one of the things that we are going to ask for with every invoice is an updated project schedule. I mean, it's hard to evaluate the invoice for complete when I don't see what they're telling me they're going to be at. So it's not uncommon for me to ask my contractors every month to provide that. It should not be that they should know where they're at. They should be able to provide that as part of that invoicing process to you.
Board members, any questions? Any discussion on this? So again, this isn't. Go ahead, Walt. Sorry.
No, I said I'm good with it. I think it's very straightforward.
Yeah, I think it gives us a lot more detail, a lot more clarity too for all of us for how that process will work. And so just a point of information and not something that we need to vote on as well, but this will be our process that we'll use. So that you and so the public both knows. Let's move on to item number 5E then on our agenda, the 2022 budget approval, and hand that over to Russ and Walt.
All right, let me share that with you real quick. Okay, there's our proposed budget. And let me see if I can shrink it down just a little bit more so it has the whole thing on the screen. Yep, there we go. That's the whole thing on the screen. Walt, did you want to get started?
Well, Russ gave me the draft to look at, and I went over it. It's got some minor increases in many areas, probably commensurate with our 6.7% inflation rate. The biggest increase, however, is in payroll. And if you recall, Mike was budgeted at part-time, and we've budgeted Russ at full-time. As we've learned over the last probably year and a half, the pace of operations and the development of our 4 projects has required essentially full-time work. And in fact, we paid Mike quite a bit in overtime. We had an overtime budget line in the previous year's budget, and that's gone away. But the straight time budget is up considerably, and that accounts for the vast majority of the increases. And I think the budget is very reasonable, so I would endorse it.
And I'll add a couple of things to it. Yeah, the salary was a big part of that. John, you talked about how if we had budgeted the 259, where it says IT services and 3,100, that's where that would go. Now, previously in 2019 on that IT services, that was money that was set aside for Interlock Solutions to do the website. So we're not really changing the line, we're changing the purpose of the line item now. But we would see that moving forward year after year then after that. But that 259 is a locked in price. It doesn't go up year after year. It's locked in for us. So I wanted to make sure I made that clear on the IT services. One of the things is that I want us to have a separate conversation at some point about the marketing and advertising services of $24,000. That $24,000 is earmarked and it goes to Visit Kitsap Peninsula. They have come back to us again for another $24,000. But I'm not ready to say that I think that's a wise spend of our money until we have some further conversation about it. So I think that we ought to go ahead and approve it for the budget, but I don't think right now there's a guarantee it's going to be spent. So I'll talk to Darren about that and whoever else wants to have that discussion, but I would really like for us to discuss whether we feel like that $24,000 is a wise investment. Everything else,
or we may want to spend it in a different way.
In a different way, right? Well, yeah. Everything else though is pretty much right along the line. I did bump the board of directors stipends to $6,000 4,000. And I think that gives us a comfortable margin for this next year as well.
All right, can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I got a quick question.
Yes, John.
Because I just want to make sure you answered two of mine already, Russ. I wanted to make sure that we had the right amount of money in the right places. As somebody, I'm just looking at that mileage budget for you. As somebody who has some extreme mileage payouts in my role, do you have enough set aside for yourself there, sir?
Oh, yeah. I do. As a matter of fact, I don't think I'll hit that, quite honestly.
Okay, just
Yeah.
double checking.
And there's, and there it says / airfare or staff airfare. I don't know if any meetings are being held, quite honestly, and I make the determination as to whether or not I feel like it's a wise spend, whether it's something worthwhile. And if it was, and of course if it's going to be over that amount, I'd go to the board and say, hey, this is something I think is worthwhile for me to attend. But yeah, I'm not worried about staff mileage getting to that at all.
Okay.
Or food and lodging for that matter.
All right, entertain a motion to approve the budget.
I move
I'll make a
approval of the proposed budget for 2022.
All right, Walt, thank you. A second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Aaron. And any discussion beyond what we've already had? All right, all those in favor of approving the budget for 2022, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. And the budget has been approved. Let's go on to item number 5F, which is discuss public disclosure requirements for a special meeting. And for this, we'll turn it over to Brian.
Thank you. So questions have come up recently about special meetings, what they are, what are the protocols, what are the rules. So I thought Russ asked me to just kind of run through the background and the statutory requirements. So first of all, what's a special meeting? It's defined as any meeting other than a regular meeting. So if there's some reason the board wants to meet and it's not at a regular meeting, that's called a special meeting. What would that be? It could be something comes up between regular meetings and there's a need for the board to deliberate, act, or whatever, the board meaning a quorum. It can also be a study session or a retreat. Again, a quorum of the board wants to get together and they want to talk about something. Or maybe it's not a hot topic that requires some immediate action, but it's maybe the more thoughtful thing of, do we have a strategic plan? Should we have a strategic plan? How would we go about putting one together and so on? So that would also be in the realm of a special meeting. How do they come about? One of two ways. A board chair has the power to call a special meeting. Also, a majority of the board members can call for a special meeting. If a special meeting is called for, there's a notice requirement, but it's relatively short. It's 24 hours. Notice can be given personally, which I don't know if that ever happens anymore, by mail, by fax, or by email, which would be the most common way to do it. Who's supposed to get the notice? Every board member and any member of the news media that has on file with the PFD a request to get notice of any meetings. There's a requirement to put the notice on the website for the public. There are exclusions to that which the PFD would qualify for, but I know just in the past when we've had special meetings this year, the PFD has gone above and beyond what are the statutory requirements. So for website notice, it's 24 hours before the meeting, and it's not required if you don't have a website. Well, we do. It's not required if you have less than 10 full-time employees, which is the PFD. It's not required if you don't have personnel whose duty is defined by a job description to maintain and update the website, which I don't think the PFD is. But anyway, best practice, post the notice of the meeting 24 hours on the website before it happens. And then again, there's a physical requirement of posting the notice at the PFD's place of business. So the notice would have to be placed on the door at the Bayshore office. And that's pretty much it.
Do we have
so,
any?
Brian, special
Yeah.
meetings are open to the public. Is that correct?
Yeah, they are. Any meetings open to the public. So yes.
Do we have any media that is on file, or however you said it, that we send them specific notices?
Aaron, I don't know the answer to that yet. So I just made myself a note to check with Sound Publishing and with the Kitsap Sun.
I think, Russ, you'll find out the answer, but I think Mike always gave notice to the Sun. I don't know about Sound Publishing. So
Okay.
the one caveat is what you can't do at a special meeting is discuss and take action on something you didn't put on the agenda.
Part of the reason why this came up is that I had spoken to Darren about the idea of doing a retreat. And, typically you kick off a year, the board gets together and, talks about what do we want to get accomplished for the year and so forth. It's a little bit different for us, and I understand that. But my thought would be, since I'm new to the job, it might not be a bad idea for an opportunity for us to spend some time together face to face and talk about, what are some things that we want to see improved upon? How do we want to work towards that in 2022? But of course, since we would have at least 4 of our board members there, that considers a quorum, which means that we have to announce it as a special meeting. So that's not to say we would have a retreat. I just kind of asked the question, and then that got me spurring to talk to Brian. And hey, Brian, what do you know about this? And so that's the reason why I brought it up tonight for Brian to speak to it, to give us a better sense of how we could gather. What are the requirements if we were to gather in some kind of an environment like that?
All right. Thank you. Any other comment or question on this item before moving on to the next one? Okay, let's move on to number 5G, which is our 2022 meeting schedule. Can you put that slide or that part of the presentation up, Russ?
There you go.
Thank you. So as we know, we're caught in a COVID, do we meet publicly conundrum. And so we'll just continue to play that out, but this at least acknowledges our intention with the dates that we have with local municipalities where we move our meetings around. And this was something that we started a couple of years ago just to give the public better voice in our meetings, to make it more accessible for someone on Bainbridge to come to the meeting instead of going, to Silverdale, or someone in Port Orchard to come to the meeting. And so for all of the public meetings where BCAT could tape our meetings, we have put them now on a rotating basis where we'll move our meetings around so that the public has more access. That's the intent of it. But other than that, can I have a motion, or do we need a motion for a meeting schedule?
Well, it is a
It's
resolution.
a resolution.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
correct. Since it's a resolution, you need a vote.
Okay, so can I have what's motion? Thank you for this resolution.
I'll move.
01-221.
I'll move for resolution 01-2021 to set the meetings for 2022.
Thanks so much. And then a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Walt. And then discussion. Any discussion on
Is that
the dates or
resolution,
places?
is that resolution dated correctly?
Is it resolution 01-2022, or is this really the first resolution of 2021?
Yeah, no, that's correct. It is correct. It's the first one of 2021.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll actually do 3 tonight. Resolution, and quite honestly, I don't know. This one was written, the second one for the year was for the approval of West Sound Workforce and their expenditure for the executive director's search. So that was approved last month. I don't know why this one wasn't brought this month unless there were some changes. One point of discussion though, and I want to thank Mike at BCAT for letting me know this, but I didn't realize, but the May 30th date is actually Memorial Day.
I was going to suggest an amendment to it. Yeah.
So, right. I do think that we ought to amend that. And I would suggest the 23rd, the week before, but that's my suggestion to amend it.
Let's
So
do
moved.
that. Let's make it the 23rd.
Okay, you got it.
Okay, any other comment or discussion on this resolution?
I would just like to say, as much as I would enjoy meeting with you on January 24th, and I'll do my best if I have Wi-Fi connection on the beach in Hawaii.
Walt, why does this meeting is basically Walt's vacation itinerary. It's like it's your own HGTV show or your own reality show.
Right.
Where's Walt traveling to next?
I'm traveling to Oahu and the Big Island of Hawaii for 3 weeks.
All right.
We can play where.
Well, you should definitely come on and just show us some palm trees so we
I'll
can
do my
live
best.
vicariously.
I just don't know my Wi-Fi status in my beach cottage.
Oh yeah, rough. All right, let's call this to a vote. All those in favor of approving resolution 01-2021, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed, say nay. Okay, moving on to 5H, review of resolution 03-2021, the executive director appointment as our investment officer. Russ, would you give us the background of this resolution?
Yes. So what this does is this allows me to be able to contact the Treasury Department to make investments. So in other words, if we look into the pool of money that we have in the 977 fund, right? In other words, we've taken money out for our operating expenses and we've spent money towards the projects and we start to hit a negative balance, then as the investment officer, you all are giving me the authority then to go to the county and say, please sell investments to cover our negative. And so that's what it does. It just gives me the ability, rather than one of the board members or the board chair having to do that, it gives me the ability to do it. Mike was the investment officer for all those years, so this would just be appointing me to it.
So there wasn't a situation that has come up in your tenure that caused you to think of this. It is a role that Mike used to have, and
Right.
we need to formally, as our new executive director, give you that same ability to move funds and to sell investments.
That's true, but there was one that came up, and as a matter of fact, we were in the rears in our 977. And the Treasury's office contacted me and said, you're going to need to request to sell some investments to cover that loss. So I said, I can't, because I'm not the information officer. And they said, well, we need to get those investments sold. So if you authorize it and the board comes back and says that they authorize you to be the information officer, then we're okay. So yes, it did happen during my short tenure here.
Yeah. So that's why it's before us, and it's investment officer. instead of the information officer, although you already are an information officer as well. So with that, can I have approval? Can I have a motion for the approval of Resolution 03-2021?
I would move approval of resolution number 3 of 2021.
Thank you, Walt. In a second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Pat. And then any discussion?
So so this is specifically for the county, a resolution for the county, because there's nothing in our bylaws or anything like that.
Right.
And I think that'll set up a future agenda item as well. So maybe we'll hold my comments till we get to that policy.
Okay, with that then, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Resolution passes. On to 5I, Resolution 04-2021, the Executive Director Voucher Approval Level. Russ, would you give us background on this?
Right. Yep. So this is the same way. It allows the executive director to approve up to a particular point a voucher to be paid. So an example, the cable bill, right? Or an unexpected expense that came along. Anything that's under $1,000, right? It can't wait until you have the next board meeting to approve the blanket voucher. It gives the executive officer the ability to approve that and process that for payment through the county of up to $1,000.
All right, can I have a motion to approve Resolution 04-2021?
I'll move to approve Resolution 04-2021.
Thank you, Aaron. A second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, John. And then any discussion?
Again,
Russ, this is just a continuation of the same authorization that Mike had, same amount. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right, Walt. No change in the amount. Just the person.
And again, this is specifically for the county in order to take care of that processing.
That's right. Yeah, the county handles all of our payments. So any of the payments that we have to make, regardless of what it is, whether it be payroll or any bills we pay or anything that we fund, goes through the county. So this allows me then, if we do have a bill, like I said, that becomes emergent, rather than waiting a month for the next board meeting to get board approval, I have the authority to go ahead and pay it. And I go through the county to do that.
Okay, any other discussion, conversation? All right, all those in favor of Resolution 04-2021 say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. And resolution passes. The last item here gets to some of what we've already heard, felt, whatever, as we're going through our list tonight. And thank you all for your work on going through all of these. It's a really good night for getting us on more formal and clear processes where everybody understands how everything is working. And so for this one, to look back, historically, to find what are all of the policies that we have put in place before, what are all the resolutions that we've put in place before, and have an accurate understanding and listing of those, as well as where do we have gaps, where do we need other resolutions like these to make sure that we're operating in a clear and transparent way for the board and for the public. So this was John's idea. I want to give credit to John. He's been saying this to us for almost since he came on the board, but saying, hey, we need some kind of a resolution and policy review committee that is, working on the side when it needs to, but then brings those resolutions or those policies to the board to get approved. And so I'd like to have discussion on that tonight. And for us to approve such a committee. And then that committee will begin working with Russ to look back and then to also look for gaps that we have and what else we need to make sure we get on there. So, you know, to prime this a little bit too, John was the one who brought it to us, you know, 6 months ago or whatever that time frame was. I'd like to have John be on that committee. And then another person on the board who I thought would be, you know, excellent at this to have is Phil, because of his legal background and how some of these policies and resolutions would be worded, and just thinking through those angles. So I've asked Phil if he'd be willing to, and he said he would be. And so I can share that with you as we look to form this committee. So comments, questions, what do you think?
I mean, I think it's a great idea and past due, so I'm all for it.
Press on. That's good.
Yeah, I agree too. We need to do it.
All right. Well, let's take a vote on this one, just to formally say that we're going to have this committee of the Resolution and Policy Review Committee. So can I have a motion to formally put together a Resolution and Policy Review Committee, which will consist of John and Phil, and then I will serve because I am in the role of chair right now, but whoever would move into that role in the future would then, you know, fill that spot always.
So
So
made.
moved.
All right, so I'm going John, and then I'm going Walt with the second, and all those, well, discussion. And then all those in favor say aye,
Aye.
Aye.
and any opposed, nay. Okay, good. And now we're into our financial reports, and let's go through this as efficiently and as quickly as possible at 7:12.
We will, and well, thank you, Susan, for hanging in there. First off, I got to tell you guys, Susan is she's remarkable, and what she can do in a short period of time just amazes me. And so I have thoroughly enjoyed the time that Susan and I have worked together, and I think we're going to be long, fast friends for a long time to come. So
I would just like to contribute. I get on the phone occasionally with Susan. This is Walt, and she's clearly the brains of the outfit.
and I'll tell you what, she's what keeps us on the up and up, which is exactly what we need. So we have both the October and the Novembers to talk about. So Susan, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'll let you just highlight the things that you think that we need to highlight. I'll be your Vanna White, so let me know when you need me to scroll to the next screen. We're starting off in October.
Well, I think that for efficiency, and by the way, thank you very much for everything. If we can scroll on down to November, because October is kind of a moot point. Where we are right now is really the best thing to look at. You can look at the movement between the months, but if you go down to there we go to the November here, then that gives us a clearer picture of what we're looking at. This is the profit and loss budget performance, and the areas on here that show any kind of a negative, I looked over the budget while we've been talking, and all of these areas have been corrected on the new budget. Things that cost a little bit more, like our insurance, it was at 4405, and we've raised that budget amount for 2020. It was just one payment. It was just a higher cost. There were some things that was to endure us, is who our insurance is. There were some costs that were a little bit more on the telephone, which is our Zoom calls and our Comcast, and the difference is that we had a lot more Zoom meetings than what we had anticipated at the beginning of the year when we did our initial budget. So we're just a little bit over on that. The professional services on 5419A is over, and 20,000 of that was the was the West Sound workforce increase for the new executive director search. And there was some extra website. There were some extra website costs, the $8,500 from Interlock that I don't believe were in the initial budget. And so that's why that line item is at is over our budgeted amount by about 26,000. The construction consulting, there was Northwest Municipal and Barker Creek that are in that line item number. That's on 5415A. And those were things that were approved by this board as we were going through for the expenditures on that construction consulting. The differences, the overage that we see in the salaries has to do with having the overtime for Mike when he was here, the extra overtime for the year, and then having the changes that have been made there, all of those, and the taxes that are associated being a little bit over that all has to do with the payroll and the extra hours that Mike was paid for. And the other thing, the staff development training, registrations and fees, that was all things that Mike had scheduled for, and it was about $311 more than what we had budgeted at the beginning of the year. I don't know which things weren't budgeted, but he went to 3 things during the year. But this is the most significant report out of all the reports for us to review. Everything else is in line. We have 1 more month to put onto this budget comparison, and everything else looks like it's going to be just right in line with where we had anticipated. There were just a few things that came out a little bit differently. Are there any questions on this part of it?
Susan, I came back to kind of the same. If we scroll down to the next document, the statement of financial position by fund.
Yeah,
we kind of talked about this before, but that negative liability showed up in November. It's not there in October, and it pops up again. And I think you and I talked about it at one point because I don't understand a negative liability. This is on the 977 fund. Do you guys have that up on the screen?
Oh, that 883,000.
That's the one. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that I have never received a great explanation from the county as to why it's there, other than I shouldn't worry about it. They have it under control. I know it has to do with the transfer of funds between different accounts. And it's like in their opinion, it's like a holding account. I have not received a satisfactory answer. Mike talked to them directly, and it might be that Russ and I need to have a conference call with them for a better explanation. Now that they are in the new system, a lot of this stuff is really awkward because there was a lot of changes and we've gone through a lot of research, but that number is still showing up on the report. So that's one that I believe that I think it's on book only. It's not in real life. It's a paper number. But I think it's something that Russ and I need to get the answer, because I know Mike talked to them, but I didn't actually get the answer I needed for it.
Yeah, I think that would be great because it's not there in October. It just randomly comes and goes. And if it were $18, we probably wouldn't. But it's always like pushing $1 million. So
it's on October's report.
It is? Oh,
yes.
The statement of financial, I must be looking at a different one. Oh, I didn't scroll up the next page. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah. It's there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let us know when they can explain what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's somebody that told me that, well, I make an entry to it absolutely every month, so I don't know why. It's a mystery. And I'm going, guess what it is? So, but I appreciate you keeping it on top of mind. It is something as I'm learning the new reports and trying to find the new balances, the general ledgers and the trial balance are things that are hard to come by. And we're learning those reports much better now, but this is kind of a holdover from the transition. But the county's working very hard on it. And it's a lot of work on their end too. Okay, so if we go to There's just straightforward of where we are in each fund and balances where we were in the beginning of the year, where we are now, ties out to our bank balances between the profit and loss and the balance sheet. If there are any questions, I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at these before the meeting tonight, but if there are any questions.
Any questions? All right. Well, thank you, Susan. We appreciate you waiting so long, and thank you for your explanation. And let's move on to item number 6B.
Darren, do we have to have a motion to approve financial report? I don't
know.
No. Okay. Okay.
So 6B, the blanket voucher. And that's for a total of $45,807.
No, it should be 42,557.
Okay, sorry, this is a printout from earlier. There we go, 42,557.32. And you can see all the items that are contained in there. Many of them we have already discussed, but can I have a motion to approve this blanket voucher?
I move approval of blanket voucher in the amount of $42,557.12.
All right, and a second.
I'll second.
And I believe it's 32 instead of 12. And Pat, thank you on the second.
Oh, 32, yes.
And then any discussion, any questions?
Maybe we can add Pat's name back on here.
Yeah, we can, and I've got to apologize because one of the things I'm going to need clarification on is, do these signatures get put into place and then sent for payment to the county after the meeting, after approval?
I think that would be the appropriate way to do it. To not presume that we're always going to sign off, but to put it blank on this presentation, and then once we take this vote, when you send it to them to put it on.
Okay, yeah, I'll do that. I'll keep your names, but I'll take the signatures off, and then each one of the blankets will go, after that will go like this. So yeah, I'll be more than happy to do that. And I also wanted to note too that, it's an awful big amount, but part of that's that $20,250 for West Sound Workforce. And then it's the $8,726 for Help Desk Cavalry. And then the other thing too is I'm getting the board stipends up to date. So you all are paid by the end of this year. And then we can start the first quarter of 2022 with stipends again and start going on a quarterly basis. So I think, John, I didn't get anything from you, John. So John, if you'll send me to yours, then I can process those.
I apologize. Yes. I saw that in my inbox. I've just been on the road the last 4 weeks.
No problem. No problem.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, let's take a vote then. All those in favor of approving the blanket voucher, say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? And the motion carries to approve the blanket voucher. For approving the project vouchers, from everything that we heard earlier, is that all of these vouchers are going back to our respective partners for more detail. And so we won't be taking action on these four tonight. And then in regards to item number 7, our ongoing business, I would just ask you to look over the ED activity report and regional facility reports on your own. Anything that we have missed, or any comment, anything that anybody has? All right. Well, with that then, I would like to
Darren, I would just like, just for everybody's information, we have our audit coming up from the state auditor's office, and I am scheduled to meet with the rep from the auditor's office. He wanted to meet with a board member, and so I'm meeting with him on Wednesday afternoon for 30 minutes. So that's proceeding.
All right. Thank you all. Please get those meetings in between your vacation schedule. We appreciate it.
I'll try.
All right, good.
Good first meeting, Russ. Good first
Yeah.
meeting.
With that, yeah, thank you, Russ, for a great first meeting. And with that, I want to call our meeting of the Kitsap Public Facilities District adjourned. Enjoy your evening, everybody.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you, guys.
Thanks.
Good
Good night.
first meeting, Russ.
Great. Thank you all.